McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop, Episode 20. The Deathbed of Noble James. September 27th, 1921. Continued. I stood in the crowd outside of St. Luke's Hospital, and I stared down at the note in my hand. The man from the train car is a murderer. You must stay away. I nearly sat down on the pavement. Someone had given me this note. Someone had known I was here. Who knew I was here? I'd been here 1 minute. St. Luke's was one of the last places the night enthusiasts or Mr. McGillicuddy could expect me to arrive. Had someone cast a skull spell on me when I left the park? I had heard the words St. Luke's Hospital very clearly in my head as I'd teleported. It was possible then, wasn't it? Someone had cast the spell, and they'd heard my next location. But who had known I was at the park? No one. There was no one near Ariana and I. No one could have cast a skull spell on me. I didn't know how the note had ended up in my hands. It spooked me. Besides that, the message was chilling. The man from the train car was a murderer, was he? Could I trust the note? Who had given it to me? And were they a liar? I didn't know, but I was scared. I felt that same sense again, that the world was tightening in around me. Something was coming. Time was running out. It had something to do with the man from the train car, and my powers, and Ariana and I, and possibly Noble James. Noble James. I wondered if he was here. If I'd been stabbed, I would have teleported to the nearest hospital. But I'm fairly new to this business. A professional like Noble James probably would have teleported to a hospital in another city, just to keep his enemies off his back. Still, it was the only clue to his whereabouts I had, my one shot in the dark. I entered the hospital, and I considered simply asking at the front desk if Noble James was upstairs. But he might have left a false name, and the nurse might take one look at me, scream, and call the police. I decided to sneak upstairs instead. I followed a group of medical students up the steps, holding a notebook as though I was somehow a part of their group. The hospital was busy, and no one questioned me. After the group of students reached the second floor, I paused and pretended to fix my shoe. They walked away from me, and I was left alone. I paused in the middle of the clean white hallway, not sure of where to go next. Less than a minute later, a nurse charged towards me, brisk and clipping in her high heels. "Are you lost?" she said. "Oh, yes," I said. I put on my most innocent face. "I think I took a wrong turn. I'm here looking for a friend. He was stabbed. 10 days ago." The nurse blinked at me. "Name?" "Noble James," I said. "Oh," she said. "He's in Ward 3. You'll want to go that way. Ask again if you get lost." I paused, petrified. Oh, no. It was not supposed to be this easy. It was not supposed to be this easy. This was a trap. Something was wrong. Noble James was not supposed to be right here, in this hospital, having given his real name. But I was here, and I was curious. And I felt a certain inevitability about this moment. Trap or not, someone had been expecting me. And I wanted to know what was going on. It had been 10 days since Noble James was stabbed. I knew nothing about stab wounds, but I assumed they didn't heal in 10 days. He was probably sitting propped up in a bed somewhere, bandages across his abdomen, bored and waiting for his gut to grow back together. I was sure he would be fine. You can imagine my shock, then, when I asked for Ward 3, and a nurse gestured to a sign that said, "Hospice." I spun. No, I said, "that's not right. That can't be right. He's not dying." "Who?" she said. She picked up her list of patients. "Noble James," I said. "Ah," the nurse said. She looked up at me with a sad smile. "Didn't anyone tell you?" "Yes, I'm afraid he is dying." His wounds became infected. There's nothing we can do." "Oh," I said. It felt less like a trap now. Now it just felt like a giant tragedy, a mistake. I stepped towards the door. "Are you sure you want to go in there?" the nurse said. "Normally we don't." "I'm sure I want to go in," I said. "Thank you." I stepped into the hospice ward, and I immediately hated the smell. It smelled like bile and rubbing alcohol. I looked timidly from bed to bed, and then I spotted Noble James by the window. He looked like he was made of glass. His eyes were shut. I hurried over, and I paused at the foot of his bed. "Did you know him well?" I jumped. The nurse was behind me. She offered me a chair, and we set it down beside the bed. "He was a friend," I said. The nurse left me alone, and I wondered what to do next. I sat down and folded my hands. It really was Noble James. It wasn't some mannequin or total stranger. I watched him labor for breath, and I suddenly felt very foolish. Had I come all this way because I was infatuated with him? I couldn't think of anything more ridiculous. I didn't know this man. I wished I had known him, but I didn't. Then he opened his eyes, and I knew I wasn't there because of some crazy love story. I was there because I needed to know why he'd asked to meet me at the Iron Line Bridge. The desire to know surged through me the split second our eyes locked. He frowned at me. "Who? Miss Merkel?" "Hello," I said. He smiled and shut his eyes. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to find you," I said, "after what happened at the bridge. You wanted to meet with me, and I wanted to know why, and I wanted to see if you were still alive." "Just barely," Noble said, with a hint of humor. "Are you safe here?" I said. "Has anyone tried to attack you again?" "My unique magic unusual power is not being found when I don't want to be found," Noble said. "No one can reach me here if I don't want them to." I paused. That meant he didn't care if I met with him, and I took that as an encouraging sign. "What happened?" I said. "Are you really dying?" I felt terrible as soon as I had said it. It was rude, somehow, to ask someone outright if they were dying. "I'm afraid there's nothing the doctors can do," Noble said. "The knife that I was stabbed with was cursed. I should have been able to heal, but I can't. There's magic that's keeping my body from properly mending." He sighed. "And that's it." "This is because of me," I said. "No," he said. "This is because of me. I chose to meet with you." "I wish this hadn't happened to you," I said. "Well, thank you very much," Noble James said. He paused. "Would you mind," I said, "meeting with me now? Telling me what you were going to tell me then?" "Of course." He strained to sit up a little further. He grimaced with pain. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm a selfish beast. You shouldn't have to talk when you're like this." "For heaven's sake," Noble said. "I've been lying here for 10 days wishing we'd met and talked. Now at least I'll die satisfied." I leaned close to him. He looked up into my eyes with his beautiful, poetic hazel ones, the green showing brilliantly in contrast to his skin. "You're in danger," Noble James said. "I know the plan of the night enthusiasts. They've switched agendas. Someone had to warn you. There's—" At that moment, I heard a low hiss from across the room. I looked up. An old man was staring at me from his hospital bed. He looked vicious. He pointed a long, crooked finger at me. "Murderer," the old man hissed. "Murderer." We hope you've enjoyed episode 20, The Deathbed of Noble James, of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is written and performed by Minerva Sweeney Wren. All rights reserved. Please subscribe, share it with your friends, and support Minerva Sweeney Wren at patreon.com/SweeneyWren. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop will continue next week with episode 21. Never come back.